These are all properties that I pulled out of Matrix. I'll show you the map that I was using. I just drew one really big map around the east suburbs. I wanted it to include parts of the north side around Middlevale, higher priced stuff, Highland Park, Shadyside, Lawrenceville, tiny little piece of Shadyside there, Point Breeze, then some of Wilkinsburg and some of Penn Hills. Give you a contrast between very expensive and less expensive properties. Then I dumped all of them into this spreadsheet. I colored the ones that you want to pay the most attention to and tried to give them column names that would be meaningful. This column, column O, gross profit, that's taking the gross annual rent revenue for the building. So if it's a 2-unit building, it's the revenue for both units combined. That total one big number and dividing, as you can see, L2, which is the gross rent, divided by H2, which is what I estimate. Well, here it was the closing price, 0 rehab. The next one down, you can see it closed at 95, but when I looked at the listing, obviously some rehab was needed. I took a guess at $15,000 per side. So your total price is what you paid for it, and F3, plus the rehab per unit times M3, the number of units. That gives you a total cost of $140. So here I just take L3, that's the gross rent for the entire building, almost $29,000, divide that by what you paid, and I get a ratio. It's a meaningless ratio, but it's one ratio for all the properties in the spreadsheet. By looking at this number, you can compare little properties to big properties. It just evens everything out. The bigger this number is, the better it is for you, the more you're getting for your money. If I guessed right at the amount of rehab per unit, and if I guessed right at the monthly rent per building. If you think I guessed wrong, and maybe instead of $1,280, you're going to get, say, $500 a unit for that one, so the monthly rent would be $1,000. You can just type that in, hit enter, watch this number over here. When I do, everything readjusts. So that's the whole purpose of giving it to you as a spreadsheet, so that you can adjust it. This column, P, it's a good rule of thumb for trying to figure out if you're paying too much for a unit based on the rent that you're going to get for it, or paying too much for a building. What I like, ideally, is to see this number be 2% or larger. The way I got the number, K2 over H2, so I'm taking the rent per month, the monthly rent for the building, and I'm dividing that by the cost of the building. So in other words, every month I want to collect 2% of what I paid for the building. All right. In a case where I collect 2% a month, there are 12 months in a year. 2 times 12, 24. So if we pick one of these that's really close to 2, yep, that's pretty good. All right, just what we expect. In a year, In 1 month, you'll get 2% of what you paid for the building. In a year, you'll get 12 months of that, or 12 times 2%, or almost 24%. So these numbers, they're just derivatives, one of the other. You can use whichever one you find helpful. I find them both helpful at times for different purposes. Now, I sorted right here, I sorted the spreadsheet first by area. Looking at Lincoln Larimer, I was really, this is not what I thought I would see. The gross rent, if I guessed right at rehab and at the rent you would get, the gross rent for Malcolm's Place is 27%. So 20 in a year, you would get a gross income of 27% of what it costs to purchase and put in service. Out of that cash that you're getting, let me see, your gross annual rent is $19,000. Out of that, about half of it should be set aside for the building for future repairs, vacancy, tenant turnover, roof replacement, so forth. The other half you'll use to pay the debt, and the remaining, say, $100 aside, that's your cash flow. But if you look at everything in Lincoln Larimer, you can see that way to my shock, if I guessed at the numbers right, Malcolm's property comes out good. I absolutely never thought that I would say that. You can sort this, a real reasonable way to sort it. All right, you select all the cells and click Data, Sort, in the dialog, tell it I have headers, and we would like to sort by gross profit ratio. Let me see, gross profit ratio, there we go. And I want to sort descending, so I want to see the best at the very top. Before I click this, I'll tell you what you're going to see at the very top is the worst properties. That's a fundamental rule of landlording. The worst properties give you the best ratio of rent to what you paid. Ready? Go. All right. Whoa, baby, look at that. Wilkinsburg is leading the pack. So Wilkinsburg, Penn Hills, Wilkinsburg, Lincoln Larimer, Homewood, Brushton, Wilkinsburg. I wonder if I need to go on with this. So Bell Vernon, I don't know how that, oh, that's not, yeah, forget that, that's an anomaly. Wilkinsburg, Etna, Wilkinsburg. Then we're beginning to get towards some better stuff. Lincoln Larimer shows up on line 24. That would need to look at that one, I think. No, oh, that's Mayflower. That was a strange property. I think it was a foreclosure. So this is the kind of thing you look for. If you buy this triplex on South, 400 block of South is a good area, as good goes in Wilkinsburg, but it's a foreclosure. So we know you should be able to get between 600 and 800 a unit. You've got 3 units, maybe a 1-bedroom and a 2 and another 1. And we know what you should be able to get, but it's a foreclosure, don't know what kind of condition it's in. I said if you just put $5,000 per side, that'll be good enough for a Wilkinsburg unit. You may want to put $10,000 aside. If you put, let's go halfway, 7,500 aside. All right, so you can do that 3 times. 7,500 per unit. brings your total cost to 37, and I was assuming there that the building rent, okay, I just hard-coded it, at 1900, 5 and 5 would be 15, so 6 and 6. Yeah, so that's roughly, I'm saying 3 units getting around 600 each, and that still puts you at a gross profit of 60%. So that's a major moneymaker if you bought that and could put it in service at 7.5 a side. If, on the other hand, it took 20,000 a side, then that drops it down to a gross profit of 30%. So your annual gross divided by your total cost to put it in service, buy and rehab. Annual rent by total cost is 30%. Rent from the building, total building rent per month is still above 2%. Now, these are all sold except for Malcolm's, so it doesn't really matter. But I wanted to show you that so that you have an idea when you compare. Another thing you can look at when you compare is Malcolm's Place a good deal compared with other places is purchase price per unit. This is the purchase price after the rehab. So this cell right here, Home on Brushton, notice I've selected row 7. The formula is F7, oh buggers, screwed that up, F7 over M7. Okay, that should have been, damn, that should have been this one, H, should be H7. Let me change this to an H before I send it to you. It's H2 because I happen to be on row 2 right now. Purchase price per unit. I wonder how badly I mucked that up now. Whoa, that's, shoot, how can that possibly be right? H2, yeah, okay, that's what you're paying. You're paying 24 grand a unit. Yep, that's correct. And I'm going to drag that all the way down. Purchase price per unit. Yep. So the reason it's overflowing the width of the cells is because I told it to, hey, let me just get rid of some decimal points. There we go. All right. So you can see, I would not like to see it go above 50 grand a unit. At 50 a unit, you're still 1.5% for that number. Keep this number, price per unit, and this number, percent, that's your rent per month as a percent of total purchase. If you can keep this 2 or higher, and if you can keep this under 50, then that's a good rough filter. You then need to go further into what are your expenses really going to be. Cheers.